Well, this director's commentary brought to you by Jefferson's Reserve. Or is it Jefferson Reserve? We'll put the apostrophe S on it anyway. Jefferson's Reserve. Because yes, it is that time again. Another director's commentary. And this is one that you guys have been asking for a long time. Many of you have your favorites, and it actually delighted me that some of your favorites were the ones that I did toward the end of 23 years of doing, well, actually 18 years of doing Survivorman, such as some of you love the India expedition and the Beyond Survival series, which I'm going to get to. But this is part 2 of Norway, and this is one that a lot of people have been waiting for. Why? Because, well, recently, for example, I was doing a keynote up in Prince George in British Columbia, Canada. And I got the question, which I often will get, which is what was the closest to death that I thought I was, or the most danger that I thought I was in. And it often, well, really the answer, depending on how the question is asked, will always be this episode right here. And the reason for that is going to be obvious as we get into it. So, you know what? No spoiler alerts. Let's just get into this episode. But speaking of doing keynotes, I did do a wonderful keynote for the Spruce City Wildlife Association. And I do actually come to places and speak a lot. I can speak on whether it's just being Survivorman and telling stories from my adventures around the world, or sometimes I will go and I will speak on filmmaking, adventure filmmaking. And of course, lots of times I like to tie that in with doing a concert, doing a performance, music. But I also do the more corporate events where I essentially speak to success, my success, but not in the braggadocio kind of way, in the way that you can pull from the lessons that I've learned from many, many years of surviving around the world, both at, and what I've learned both at being a businessman, a filmmaker, but first and foremost, an adventurer. And all those challenges. Before I begin as well, 2 little items to get out of the way. There's fluff on my nose. How come every time I do these, there's fluff on my nose? So proud, so thrilled, so excited that Wild Outside, the book that I wrote for kids, 2 kids, ages 5 to 14, has won 2 national awards, Best Nonfiction Children's Book, Best Information Book Award, which goes to myself and also to the illustrator Andrew P. Barr and the photographer Laura Bombier. The 3 of us obviously put that beautiful book together. Luke's going to show you some artwork because I don't have a copy of it right here. I also don't have a copy of Wild Harvest Season 1 recipe book. Luke's going to put that artwork up. And that book is available right now too. And it's also up for some awards. So, and the Wild Outside book is up for 2 more awards, as a matter of fact. So anyway, 2 books that have been out of my stable in the last year that I'm really proud of. And if you get a chance, go on the website, go to the shop page, take a look at those. All right, enough of that housekeeping and all of that self-promotion out of the way. Let's take a look at Norway, part 2. And remember, I haven't seen this in probably 15 years. So some of my reaction is going to be, just off the cuff. It's like, wow, I forgot that happened. But I know there's a lot of questions about this episode, and I'm going to try to remember them. Depending on how much of this Jefferson's Reserve I drink, I will try to remember them and get to them as we go. Let's just watch, guys. Here we go.
Norway. Beautiful, yet frigid. Lush, yet rugged. A land of extremes in both climate and topography. You can go from deep snow down to green fjords within a day's trek. This is the harsh and intense land where the Vikings struggled to survive. And like everywhere else in the world, modern adventurers and travelers drive over thousands of miles of snow-covered mountain roads and then get lost.
Now, if you didn't see part 1, remember, there is a part 1 to this whole situation. And, perhaps I should speak to that right now. I did early in the part 1. Basically, what happened was we were looking for ways, or I was looking for ways, to still accomplish getting more episodes to the network because they were hungry for them, but not kill myself in the process. And I thought, well, if I just add on for three days, bad math, 7 plus 3, 3 days, and make it a 10-day episode, but we split it in half and present it on television as 2 separate episodes, it's kind of a 2-for-1, right? Plus the added, drama, if you will, of me being out there for 3 longer days. So I always knew that when I put these together, I would try to travel. I said, you know, why don't I just get up and move around day 5? I'll just make that happen. And definitely that is what I did. There's a longer story to this because Norway was 10 days, Mexico was 10 days, Argentina was supposed to be 10 days, and we'll get to that one. So that's how the 10-day thing came about. There was a part 1. If you missed the director's commentary, or you want to watch these without me blabbing on, they're all here on the YouTube channel. You can go and you can see the Norway episode uninterrupted by me, or you can see both part 1, part 2, and then you can see part 1 director's commentary. And this, as I said, is now part 2. Let's go.
Stuck in extreme survival situations. How anyone survives is entirely up to their own will to live and sense of ingenuity.
And by the way, yeah, I am not wearing Lululemon pants. These are my long johns. I'm Canadian. We do that up here.
So now it's my turn to show you how a simple mountain drive on a snowy day can turn into a 10-day long struggle to survive. Washington, Colorado, Nevada for sure.
You know what? This is not episode 2. This is episode 1. Well, that's a flub. You probably just want me to keep it going, don't you? Sorry, not going to do it. I'm going to turn it off. Luke, you can keep this running. Every time I do stuff like this, Luke changes it and tries to make it look like I'm actually really cool and not making any mistakes, but this was a big mistake. Oh, come on. Hang on, let's do this. Oh, wait a second. Oh, I'm so confused. This is... No, I'm not. This is episode 1. I'm very confused. These are scenes from episode 1 and episode 2. We must have edited this differently for the DVD. Did we put it all together? Maybe we just put it all together for the DVD. I'm watching my own DVD right now. Okay, so that's where I'm starting. Guys, I'm literally guessing here because I guess Barry and I must have said, well, why don't we just put all the 10 days together for the DVD, and that's what I'm watching, my own DVD. For my 20th anniversary collection, by the way. Put that one up there, Luke. Yes, that's 76 films. Everything I did up until the time of Wild Harvest. My entire career right there. And that's what I'm watching right now, so I guess we put this together. All right, I'm going to start it here. And I don't know. Keep watching. Hopefully this is in the right spot.
For now, I only feel trapped.
Okay, that's another morning. Sky is very gray, and there's been freezing rain falling on the car for the last little while, last half hour or so, but it's stopped now for about 15 minutes. I'm going to wait and see if I can get a move on and get out of this car and start trying to beeline somewhere, anywhere.
Dodging in and out of the bad weather seems to be my greatest challenge.
It's actually gotten much colder, which is a good thing, because all that wet weather is a killer. At least with this cold weather now, things frozen up a bit, I can make some tracks and start traveling.
This is still the first part, but you know what? We're just going to watch it from here, and I'll just tell stories as we go.
Get out of this prison. But before I do, I think what I'd like to do is bring some gas with me. I've got that leftover peanut butter jar. There's no reason not to make use of it. Oh, I hate that. Well, it's pouring out good now.
I actually didn't need to suck the gas all the way through and get it in my mouth. With those coils, once you get the suction starting, it will just come out. I was just kind of doing overkill there. But this is a way, this is a method, and I guess what I thought was, well, let's bring the gasoline along with me. I must have used it again later on. Well, we'll find out, won't we?
There we go. Oh, it's peanut butter gas. I wonder what happens when you put peanut butter and gas together. I don't really have a clue how yet, but somehow this might all make up my shelter. I'm sort of improvising as I go here. There's lots of different side roads going off of the main road. Now that the ground is mostly frozen, it's much better for walking. I just gotta hope that that sled holds out. I'll pull it along the way. I've got my backpack for my camera gear. I think I've got a clear sky for at least a moment anyway. I want to try to find a way where I can survive and make it back to safety and not, hopefully, end up with a miserable night out in wet snow and the rain in the bush. Because if I do, then that car is going to start looking pretty nice.
I still have that jacket, actually.
My initial huge advantage is that I have roads to walk on. But this will be a good exercise surviving in areas where I should be able to find people, but can't. Whatever I face now, nearly 5 days trapped in a car, is long enough. It's time for self-rescue in the hopes that what's out there is better than what I'm leaving behind.
The backpack has all of my camera gear and that sleeping bag in it, so it's fortunate that I had this. That's awesome, because there's a lot of camera batteries to carry, but it also keeps the sleeping bag protected if it does come back onto rain or snow.
And that was the thing always in Survivorman and the expeditions that I did. One way or the other, I had to carry camera gear, which meant I had to have a backpack. And it's a little incongruent with an actual survival situation, but it had to be. I was a filmmaker, and this is the way I was doing my filmmaking. So, you know, I could carry, if I built something or made something, I could always carry it that way. But I think what I did here was basically the pack always normally just has the camera gear. You have to remember, this is getting a lot later on in the years of filming Survivorman, and I can always see in myself where I was expanding into the world of survival a little more, a little less of the sensational, I have absolutely nothing, what am I going to do kind of thing, right? This is more, no, there are some things here that I could use, and how does it change survival when you have a survival kit or survival items of any sort that you had when you got into the trouble in the first place? I like doing that. It was a lot of fun.
It's mind-boggling how many survival stories exist where people had to endure an ordeal in areas where they should have been able to find help, yet didn't. And sometimes human tracks can be very misleading and take you off into places more dangerous for survival than where you came from. It's the inherent danger of moving forward into the unknown of a survival situation.
That little toboggan camera angle there reminds me going way back to the time when I was filming the plane crash episode, and did the very same thing, but that was before GoPros. So this this might have been a GoPro that was down there. It would have been the lousy version of them. The first one or two versions weren't very good, but it still might have been a GoPro. Whereas way back in the day, doing the plane crash, it would have been some big camera I had to strap down.
As you can see, there's tire impressions on this road.
Yeah, there's a GoPro right there, right on my chest. Looks like the alpha version of GoPro.
Really fresh too. So there's definitely some people out here somewhere, and I can tell by the way the snow's falling. Unfortunately, they lead uphill. So that's the direction I'm heading for now.
One of the things I did with filmmaking was I aspired to emulate the work of Bill Mason. Bill Mason is a Canadian filmmaker who made beautiful films. If you love wolves, you should see his work on wolves, but also if you love canoeing, he's one of the godfathers of canoeing. Him, Kirk Whipper, Hap Wilson, these men, you know, and Wendy Grader, absolutely. These people reign supreme in the world of outdoor adventuring in Canada, but in filmmaking it was Bill Mason. And he did films where it was all about, can we make you feel like you're in the canoe? Can we make you feel like you're part of the adventure? And I wanted to emulate that with the Survivorman expeditions. I wanted you to feel everything I was feeling and seeing everything I was seeing as I was seeing it and how I was seeing it, to try to bring you right there with me.
I have no way of knowing how far these tire tracks go. They could go another 50 miles, for all I know. It's real easy to get hot and sweaty doing this. That's a problem. Because if you sweat, you die.
Fortunately, the temperatures are only about 10 degrees or so below freezing, which means I still have access to some fresh running streams. Though I've never had an issue eating snow, so long as my body is warm during the day, it's a lot better to be able to drink freely from already melted water.
And the saying goes like this: water is better than slush, slush is better than ice, and ice is better than snow in terms of if you're melting it down or if you're heating it up in a pot or whatever. That's how you get more volume. But I've often spoken to the whole thing about eating snow, and I've seen books, oh, you shouldn't eat snow, it abrades your mouth, blah, blah, blah. You need to be hydrated. And so, or it's going to cool you down, kind of, no. If you're working hard and it's the middle of the day, I eat snow constantly to be getting the hydration in me, because the winter sucks the moisture right out of your body. It's incredible how dry you get in the winter. So I'm always eating snow until about 4:30, and especially if I slow down and stop, because then, yes, I can be cooling my body temperature down, which is dangerous. So at that point, I need to be heating the snow up, melting it, and getting warm water instead. But during the day, eat as much snow as you want. But don't you eat that yellow snow. Thanks, Frank.
Ironically, I need to keep myself from overheating and sweating while I hike up these mountain roads.
Let's get it right. Let's watch out where the huskies go, and don't you eat that yellow snow.
Staying hydrated, just vital in the winter bush. It's hard to do. You don't think about drinking water because you're around all this snow. But
See? I wasn't lying. That guy's right.
dehydrated out here can lead to hypothermia.
That's a little known sort of biological part of this, is that dehydration can chill you down and lead to hypothermia. So it exacerbates the potentiality of getting hypothermia.
Human tracks, but they just keep on going. Nothing in sight yet. So I'm gonna take a break. Night's coming soon, and my toes are frozen. I'm gonna switch to my homemade mucklucks. The snow off the side of the trail is super deep. I'm gonna settle in here. I gotta take a break. It's a frustrating paradox. You wanna move as fast as you can to get to where you wanna be, to get to safety. The quicker you move, the hotter you get, the more sweatier you get, the more dangerous it all becomes. It's one thing to get sweaty out in the winter wilderness. You know you're going home to a warm bed and a hot shower. It's quite something else when you don't know where you're gonna end up.
Why did I harp on that all the time? Why is my own catchphrase, which I trademarked, "You sweat, you die," why is that a thing? Because it just truly, really is a very dangerous thing to get sweaty in a winter survival situation. If you're cross-country skiing, you can just pour. That's fine. Who cares, right? But in a survival situation, getting sweaty and it's cold, very, very dangerous. That's why I harped on it.
These poor old hikers are great boots, but they're not keeping me warm in this temperature.
Now is when the decision to sacrifice the insides of the car upholstery pays off and protects my feet.
Huh. Already feels warmer. Okay.
I think those snow pants were sponsored, and the big jacket too. I think it was one of those. Along the way, there was always those endorsement deals, that you would do. Actually, speaking of endorsement deals, look at the picture right there. Luke, put it back up to the frozen shot there, and you see the camera down there on the snow, and it's sitting on I've got them downstairs on a little thing called the pod. You can still buy them, I'm sure. And I had them make a bunch of Survivorman pods, but that little gray one, the original one that I still have, and I love having it because it was pretty much on every single Survivorman I ever shot. So maybe I'll auction it off someday. But it's holding some crappy little camera there. But that little pod was amazing. It's a beanbag, basically. And because I could put it in the mud, in puddles, in the snow, and put the smaller camera on it. And it was just so easy just to put it down, get my shot, put it down, get my shot. I didn't have to futz with it, like a tripod and get it all properly set. Just shove it down and get my shot. And it got the angle that I wanted. So that was a little bit, in the camera world of filming Survivorman, that little tiny beanbag pod was a lifesaver for me. And if you're into filming your own adventures, look them up. They're great. This is still episode 1, by the way, so this is all bonus director's commentary, because I already did this on the other one, but I probably said other really cool things, so you better watch it.
Not necessarily a fashion statement, but I'd rather keep my toes. Huh. All right. Well, these boots are kind of acting like snowshoes. It's bonus. It's a little bit of a hole down there.
I think that patch that's on my bum on those pants, I had it sewn on. I think that's a throwback to a bit of a nostalgic throwback for me, because I believe it's a patch. It's probably a patch from Survival in the Bush, which was the original course I took that Gino Ferry in Toronto ran I was taught by David Arama, who still teaches survival in the Toronto area, Doug Getgood and Fred Rowe. And that patch was like an old patch I had from that, and I stitched it on the bum of those pants. Just a little, you know, a little throwback to your own past history and some nostalgia.
If there's one pet peeve I have in survival instruction, it's that picture in every classic textbook of the perfect tree with the perfect hole underneath created by the boughs and the branches, and you can get in and have 3 feet or 4 feet of snow all around you for insulation. I've seen one in many, 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 many years of being out in the winter bush. They're just few and far between. You can't count on them. But this is a good start here. I think this is where I'll work my shelter.
And let me go back on that, because I've seen some comments on this. I'm gonna lay that one down even harder. It's like, don't tell me that you can find the kids. Oh, I've seen them all over the place. Have you really? Have you? Did you actually climb in? Did you actually go in, and did you build a shelter to see what it would even work, or did you ski by or snowshoe by and see it and go, oh yeah, that'd make a good one? Because that's not confirming that it would make a good shelter. What's my point? Why am I on my shackles on this one? Because it's in every book, and I've been in a lot of mountainous territories in the areas where those types of tree wells, as they call them, are supposed to exist. And they don't exist like they show you in the book. They're not perfect little caves to crawl into. They're often useless the way they are. And so my point being that you don't want to. It's a fine suggestion, but if people think, oh, I'll just go and do that, then they're going to be in for a lot of trouble. You can't just go and do anything in a survival situation. And anyway, since that's frozen on my butt, that is not a survival in the bush patch from my earlier days. I don't know. It's some adventure patch somebody gave me, and I had somebody sew it on my butt. Hopefully I wasn't wearing them when they did that.
With rations long gone and 2 full days without any food at all, every effortful activity takes its toll on
See, now that I brought it up, you can't not see that patch, right? That's all you see in this scene now.
my energy reserves.
This doesn't look all that arduous. Bear in mind, I think it's been, 2 days now without food? 2 or 1, I can't even remember anymore. I'm gonna go get some of that ready-made shelter material, courtesy of the car. Insulation from the ground is everything. The conduction through touching the ground and getting cold that way is pretty powerful. Not seeming like so much of a stupid idea now. If I had to make this shelter out of branches, it would exhaust me in no time flat.
And I want to point that out, you know, in every survival situation, when I used to teach constantly, trying to get people to understand that first things first, the ground, your bed. How many boughs, how high of boughs should you make it? How thick? 3 feet. 3 feet of thickness of boughs. So a lot of evergreen boughs, because as you sit on that, it works its way down, and you might end up with a foot by the end of the night. If you start with a foot, you're on the snow by morning time. So you really have to overemphasize the importance of building a big, lofty bed. If you want to see what I mean, as another example, watch the first episode of Survivorman, COVID-19. Second episode, Survivorman, COVID-19. And I explain there how to make a proper bed. Yeah, watch that one. You'll like it.
I've had better shelters, but this one's pretty solid. I'm up off the snow, that's the main thing. The big problem is that I don't have a roof, so it's more of a protection from wind and a place for me to try to curl up into a ball, I guess. Beats curling up in the snow.
My 6 hours of daylight in the Norwegian wilderness are over as the night moves in fast.
All right, this is it. This is my spot for the night. Full moon's finished now, so it gets very dark early. I'm wearing pretty much everything that I have. Every scrap I could find, I'm wearing or wrapped around me. Got the sleeping bag wrapped up around me and underneath me. I'm on a solid wood platform between me and the snow, and it makes such a huge difference. I can't think anymore. I need some food.
Being able to think clearly in any survival situation is vital, and the biggest challenge to that is lack of sleep.
I have a feeling this is going to be a long night. And I have a second feeling that I'm not going to be sleeping much. And right now, that car's looking pretty good.
Sometimes lost in the ordeal, the obvious can escape me. Without food and sleep, my brain doesn't fire on all cylinders.
You guys have heard me say that before. Getting sleep, probably the most underrated necessity of survival. You've got to sleep. And we used to have a saying, if you don't have to stand up, sit down. If you don't have to sit down, lie down. If you don't have to be awake, sleep.
I just thought of something. I didn't even remember this. Remember the survival kit in the car? Remember it was that little travel stove? I've got it. I've got it. Let's find out if this works. If it does, I'm gonna heat up some water.
I think we're into part 2 now. Like I said, we obviously edited this for the sake of it being on the DVD as one solid film, but I think we're into part 2, so I'll shut up and keep watching.
I've put the reflector sheet up all around here, hoping that it'll reflect.
Though being stuck in a car for almost a week was a challenge, there's a relief in the advantage of having an emergency kit. Sometimes even one item can make the difference between surviving or perishing.
Even this little flame, chemical as it is, feels great.
You might be wondering, why didn't I do that when I was back in the car instead of using the battery to light the gas to get the, was that all just sensationalistic? No. Always remember, in the fire starting situation, in a survival situation, you're trying to extend the life of your matches, your lighter, whatever your sure way of getting a fire going is, you want to make sure that lasts a very long time. So if there's a secondary way to get a fire going that you can use, or you know how to do it with a secondary way, then that's what you want to do. Save your matches, save your lighter, save your fluid.
I'm gonna throw a couple of spruce twigs into the water. There's vitamin C in evergreen needles, so can't hurt. Just one.
And if you haven't seen my new series, Wild Harvest, with Chef Paul Rogowski, we do an episode dedicated to spruce needles and spruce tips. And all of the evergreens make a pretty great tea. What's my favorite tea? Do you know what my favorite evergreen sort of needle tea is? Nope. Hemlock. The hemlock tree, making tea with those needles from the hemlock tree, at least here in Ontario anyway, is my favorite flavor of wild teas. So try that sometime.
I'm sitting here. You can see the moon through the trees. Even in a night of survival, you can still see the beauty of the natural world. Even if sometimes it doesn't feel beautiful, it always is. Stuck in the middle of the bush, wearing everything I have, sitting on pieces of ripped out car, and boiling water. Now that's survival. I like this little survival stove. It's getting a thumbs up in my book, I think.
I can point out that was one of my favorite parts of a lot of the Survivorman episodes was when I got to kind of battle test survival stuff. After a while, what I would do, I've told this story before, but if you haven't heard it, after a while, what I would do before going out on a Survivorman expedition is I would go to, up here in Canada, we have a place called Canadian Tire. Maybe it would be Walmart down in the States, but I would go into a store like that and I'd say, okay, what's on the shelf that they're calling survival items? Now, as Survivorman took off and became popular, and then all the other shows came along, survival items on store shelves, poof, you got a whole aisle at that point. And so I would go there and I would just say, oh, what's this? All in one kit. And I would grab something and say, I'm going to try this on the next Survivorman just to see. And I will say that 8 times out of 10, those survival items that I would try, were pure crap. Absolute crap. Because as you guys who know me know, my contention is or my opinion is, you want to make your own survival kit with quality items. Your life depends upon it. Do you want a paramedic using, 4th grade medical equipment to save you in a car accident? You want doctors to use lower grade level medical equipment to save you in a surgery? No. If you're in a survival situation, not recreational, not camping, not bushcrafting, but survival, you want the best, the very best, to keep you alive. So yeah, most of the stuff that you guys go and buy, sorry, not you guys, I meant the other you guys, not you guys. go and buy for Christmas for, put in the stuff. It's crap, and it breaks, and it's useless. Make your own survival kit. Make it high-quality items.
Oh, that's good.
In reality, hypothermia is sometimes only a degree or two away.
Wow. I can taste the spruce needles in the water. A little turpentine-y, but it takes the blandness out of it just being hot water. Oh, it's so important to rehydrate. It's also important to vacate your bladder in a survival situation, especially the cold like this. Your body spends a lot of time trying to heat up that liquid inside your body, inside your bladder. So get rid of it before you are going to try and curl in for the night. That's what I do. And I find it makes a big difference. And if I've got any food at all, it's good for me to have a little bite right before I try to sleep so that the heat inside my stomach, the digestive heat, warms up my body through the night.
Those are good tips. This guy knows a lot of stuff. So those are the best tips for cold. I've many times going camping, and I will speak with wonderful women on a camping trip, and they want to be warm. And I always say, this is my advice. You want to be warm at night, eat a little block of cheddar cheese, pure fat. I've eaten a little block of cheddar cheese right before bed. Sorry, right before bed is the point there. And had to peel the sleeping bag back, I'm so hot, or had to get out of a survival shelter because I'm too warm. It really works. I learned that with the Inuit, with whale blubber, and eating that right before bed. Oh my gosh, it was like you're on fire. It was amazing. So you want to be warm at night, have a block. Now, never mind the whole dairy thing. Just the best thing really is fat. So a block of some kind of fat, so obviously cheddar cheese works well, and eat that right before bed. It will keep you warm all the way through the night. And yeah, the vacating the bladder thing, also really important.
But I don't have any food. But I do have hot water.
But a little trick, by the way. If you're camping and you don't want to miss the northern lights, then drink a lot of water right before bed. You got to get up at 2 a.m. to pee. You go out to pee and you take a check and see if the northern lights are shining. I've done that on a number of camping canoeing trips and gone, hey, and I wake everybody up because the northern lights are just on fire and they're beautiful. That's a little trick in reverse for the sake of wonderful aesthetics and beauty.
On this 6th day of survival in the cold, I've decided to leave behind my portable shelter.
This is actually really appropriate for me to watch this right now because I just did my DNA test, and for a lot of weird reasons that maybe someday I'll tell when I tell my life story, because I needed to do a DNA test. How about there for a teaser? And I found out that, yeah, man, I'm 16% Viking, so there you go.
And got me too sweaty while I trekked the cold mountainside. Free of the heavy load, I'll take my chances hiking the road now.
There are a lot of different additive forces in survival. Certainly, the will to live is the most important. But that's followed by luck, kind of shape you're in, all sorts of things. Geographically where you are, whether you're alone or with other people. And a big one for me is whether or not you have a survival kit. It might seem like a small thing at the time, but there are items within a survival kit that can actually save your life and make a big difference. And I'm not talking about grab off the shelf kits that are available today. I'm talking about putting stuff together yourself so you know what you've got, you know how to use it, and you know that it works. That's the only kind of survival kit to have.
See, that guy knows what he's talking about. So a little behind the scenes story here. Ready for this one? You ask me a lot of times, have I ever run into other people out there? And I've told the story. I think I've already done Labrador, so it won't be a spoiler alert, where that was the funniest because it was like the whole town of, I believe they were Cree Indigenous people from Canada, came out on snowmobiles, and they were big Survivorman fans. And every night somebody came out on a snowmobile bringing me scotch and fish, and which I can't do it, guys. I can't take it. You know what I do out here. I had to be left alone to do my show. But they came out and I was autographing snowmobile windshields. Funny as hell. In Arizona, I ran into a lone hunter. It was just kind of creepy and weird. It was just like hi, how's it going, eh? And then he left. And that was the first time I was doing Survivorman. So nobody had heard of any of this kind of filmmaking before. And where else did I run into somebody? There was something else. But in any event, right here on this road, this was a funny one. I'm walking up like that, and I kind of hear something. And a guy passes me going uphill, and he's boogieing it, just boogieing uphill on cross-country skis, typical classic Norwegian, right by me, kind of like a little look and a smile. I think he might have said hello, didn't stop, and just kept going up the mountain. And he was probably in his mid-80s. The cliche is true. In his mid-80s, Norwegian, and passed me like he was on a Sunday stroll. He wasn't even breathing heavy. On cross-country skis, I'm out here being Survivorman. I'm like 6 days without food, and this guy's just boogieing past me. Anyway, that happened somewhere in around where I am right now, and it was funny as hell.
In my books.
I mentioned in the other director's commentary, part 1, that these aerial shots, which give you the feeling of where I am and so on and so forth, were done. This was the first time, I believe, we brought drones into the regular filming. And you've heard me do, again, sorry guys, but you know what? It was 18 years of a lot of work, and I am proud of a lot of the things we did. One of the things we did was with Mexico and Norway, we brought drones into regular usage for the shooting of the show instead of helicopters. And if you go back in history and you watch the different shows and you see what was available, we were the first ones to do it. Nobody was using drones yet. And as soon as I saw them, I thought, $30,000 for a helicopter or $5,000 for guys doing drone footage, and it's going to look pretty much as good, then yeah, let's do that. And we switched to that right away. I mean, now it's ad nauseum at this point. In fact, some shows I'm just sick of the drone shots. It's like, okay, enough of the drone shots. And you'll see the same drone shots over and over again. But this was the very beginning. And I was very proud as a filmmaker to see that, to jump on it, to incorporate it. Not a long time before everybody else. I want to say about maybe 18 months before everybody else started using them.
If I didn't have this
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
road to walk on, I wouldn't be getting anywhere fast.
Human tracks in the snow are a huge boost to morale, providing you can actually run into the people themselves or find that their trail leads out and not another 100 miles through the wilderness.
Coming up around
The little point there is this. You can see tracks, human, snowshoes, boots, cars. You can come across train tracks, as I did in a Survivorman episode. That doesn't mean that the people are close. And it doesn't mean that if you, in the case of a road or train tracks, that if you turn right, that's the right way to go. Maybe you should have gone left. So it's not a guarantee when you see stuff like that in a survival situation that you're going to go in the right direction. I think I talk a lot about that in the Romanian episode, which I'll probably talk about later. I don't think we're there yet. Okay, here, let's go.
on this bend, thought I saw something in the snow here.
Oh, there's a nice little shot right there. I know, I'm talking a lot tonight. Look at what I'm using. That was, originally I built a whole thing. My selfie stick, which again, I used long before there were selfie sticks, was, and to this day still is, nothing more than they were called slick tripods. In fact, we made a bunch of Les Stroud slick tripods with a little bit of modifications for me. But that tripod you can see right there, that's it. That is what I've used for the entire 18 years of filming Survivorman and Wild Harvest since then. It was just put the camera on that. Nothing was ever better. And then it also doubled as a tripod if I wanted to put it on the ground. There was no point in buying anything that was any fancier because that just always worked.
And I did. There's fresh human tracks leading up the hill here. And at the top, I can just make out the faint outline of a rooftop. So I got my hopes held high right now that this is gonna be a little bit of salvation.
Okay, some of you have asked, was this premeditated, was this planned, or was this just random? And did it actually happen this way? Yes, it was completely random and actually happened this way. Now, sometimes in these locations, I'll ask my local fixer, what am I going to find out there? What might I be able to use? What might I run into? Norway was probably the episode where more than any other episode that I knew there was opportunity out there. And here's what I was told. I was told that you will probably find some cabins up there. It's not a big deal if you break into them and use them. And that's what I was told. That was it. I didn't know for sure if I would, but that's what I was facing when I went off to do this.
Trail looks like it goes straight up. I don't care, that's where I'm headed. When you think about what I've had to eat for, I don't know, what is it, 6 days? I need some food.
All right. Oh, we're gonna find something. I better not spoiler alert it.
Had to be straight up, didn't it? Had to be. Well, the same rules still apply to me now as any other time, even though I'm excited to see this trail. I'm hoping that there's something good on the other end.
So I did, my Norwegian fixer, I can't remember the name. He's going to be in the credits for a wonderful man, beautiful log cabin that wasn't all that far from where the car was. He was the one that had sort of told me, well, you're going to walk, if you're going to walk, stay away from people and so on, you want to walk in that direction. You might find an old cabin up in those areas. You might find, I remember this, you might find leftover hunting entrails and things like that from deer or elk or whatever was there. And then you'll be able to go down to the fjord from there. So I got that kind of direction, but it was still pretty like I easily could have gotten lost. Well, we're going to see what happens.
It's not about being a stuntman. It's certainly not about running around and jumping up and down and diving into frothing gorges or anything like that. Reality of survival.
Gee, I wonder what I'm referencing there. Yes, at this point, all of the other copycat shows had come along, and Bozo Bear and all the rest of them. And, it was all sensationalistic and big stunts and stuff like that, at least in the beginning, right? Not speaking to whatever these individuals did later, certainly in the case of Bear, but in the beginning, the first stuff, and certainly with Man vs. Wild, a lot of ridiculous stunts and dangerous stunts when it comes to actual survival, nonsensical things in terms of survival. So that's what I'm referencing there, obviously. But I was kind of, at this point, having a bit of fun with it, because I just didn't care anymore.
Slow, easy, methodical, calculated risks. Then you come out alive.
Right.
And that's what survival's all about.
Right.
The classic woodsman or hunter is a natural survival expert.
Oh, that's good. Oh.
But that's because they may spend their whole lives training in the forest, learning all the nuances of what it really takes to survive with each moment in the bush.
I can see a cabin. In fact, I see a couple of cabins. What I really like now is to see some smoke coming out of a chimney.
I think what I was hoping there was, had there been, smoke coming out of the chimney or people there, something like that, it would have been kind of the end of the story. And I would have gotten off a little bit easy here, and this episode would have ended, which was not the case. But that's what I was hoping for, because wouldn't that be the thing you would hope for in a survival situation?
Suddenly I feel a renewed sense of vigor and energy.
Well, that backpack says Gregory on it. My favorite backpacks. Love them.
Hello?
You want to know what I'm really worried about in a situation like that, when I yell, hello, like that? I'm worried they've got a guard dog. That's it. It wouldn't matter what else I found. I'm always just worried that there might be a guard dog somewhere. And that's actually why I'm calling out. All right, let's carry on.
6 days of survival on a mountainside in Norway, and I've come across a great find: abandoned cabins.
Hello? Nothing. Not even a dog barking. Hello? It's quite the view. It's all blocked out by snow right now, but that's the fjord down there. I hope there's a wood stove. And these aren't
And to be clear, no, I've never seen any of this before. I knew this was possible, but I didn't know what I would come upon.
just storage sheds. These buildings look old, very old. Probably the 30s or 40s. But I know I'm gonna be one of these buildings tonight. Wood stove or not. Huh. That's the first building. Huh. Well, that's a good little building. come in here if I have to, but I want to see where the tracks lead. A compound out in the woods here. I can't tell if the tracks are snowed over from this current snow or if they're just older. Hello? I see firewood.
I used to love it when I would be filming and the snow and the rain would get on the camera lens. And here's the reason why. It really showed you what was going on and what I was going through. And in, pretty much all of other film productions, camera people are really picky. So they're hyper cleaning their lenses all the time and everything is perfect. And so every shot is clean and perfect. With Survivorman, I just didn't have the time to be cleaning lenses. So I left the smudges on and the snow on and the rain on and the dirt on because it was much more visceral. It was much more real of what I was going through. And so, and I knew that worked very well. Nowadays, people do stuff like that and they put the snow on purpose, ain't the same thing.
That's a good sign. What's this? That's what I thought it was. Sea hunters. Deer head.
Okay, now I'll come back to it.
Hello? This is pretty sweet. I think I hit the jackpot. Check this out. Oh, look at this. 1946. I was right. But this is a reality sometimes. I always say, in a survival situation, you come across a cottage or a cabin, it's actually legal in most places to break in and not be charged with it if you're in a survival situation. Obviously, they're Norwegians. And this place looks beautiful to me right now. The snow's just coming down strong. I'm gonna start a fire and get warmed up. There's matches and candles, sleeping bag, beds, wood stove. There's even a radio. Cook stove, no food. But a deer head.
After 6 days surviving in the Norwegian mountains, I've lucked into a huge advantage, a hunter's cabin. And what's better, some left behind deer remains. So with a simple twist of fate, a fantastic boost changes a deadly circumstance. And whether I find garbage, or a dead fish left behind by an eagle, or a deer carcass left behind by hunters, either way, it all represents digestible nutrition, especially after 3 days on little rations, followed by 2 days with no food at all.
Okay, now full disclosure. That was not set up. It was not organized. I didn't ask for it. I didn't find out until much later, well, when I got out, and I was talking to my local fixer. I told him, yeah, I found some of those cabins you were talking about, and sure enough, like you said, there was a deer carcass left behind. And then he looks at me, he got a big smile on his face, he goes, yeah, I know, I put it up there just in case. So he had actually put it up there, thinking that I'd be really super hungry. It was, I suppose in the end, it was mimicking a reality. I actually have come upon a lot of hunters' sites in the wilderness where all the leftover remains from cutting up a moose or a deer are there. And yeah, they would be edible in a lot of situations. And so it was mimicking that, but I didn't ask him to do it. I didn't know he'd done it. I truly thought, I'm just like, holy crap, I hit the jackpot. This is the coolest thing ever. And so I filmed it as I did. And it wasn't until I got out later, he said, yeah, I was hoping you'd find that cabin. Hoping you'd find the cabins and you'd find actually that particular cabin. And so I threw a deer up there just in case you did. So it's Christmas time, you know.
Oh, this is gonna feel so good. It'll be getting dark very, very soon. I couldn't be in a better place at this point.
This cabin and this food are prime examples of why proactive, mobile survival can often be far better than just staying put, but it takes skill to move on.
And that's the thing. Stay put or move on. Sometimes you should stay put because you know people are going to come for you. But when you do reconnaissance missions, when you do move on, when you are proactive, you find advantages, you find other places, you find better circumstances, like a cabin. The night before this, I was sitting on my butt on a piece of wood in the bush. The night before that, I was sleeping in a car in the frigid temperatures. Now I'm in a cabin with a wood stove and a deer carcass. And so the circumstances changed drastically because I got up and I moved.
That's perfect. That's just a bit of deer fat and a little tiny bit of deer meat. I'm gonna cook that up, get that right into me, and assuming I'm likely still hungry, go back for the liver and the heart. I see there in the bag as well. Lungs, liver, heart, a bunch of fats in the bag. I figure that's fair game. I don't think they're too worried about that. I'm sure it was probably meant to be dog food, so it'll go well in my stomach right now. Okay, hopefully I can get that onto some kind of a boil with the fire like this, and wow, that's unbelievable. This is a lot better.
I remember he was so excited. Did you find the deer? He was so excited when he told me later that, and you know, he was very happy to be part of this whole production thing. But yeah, he didn't know if I'd even find it at all. I mean, it's a little bit of a shot in the dark to find those cabins. I knew roughly they were like the hill of a mountain somewhere, sort of thing. But he was pretty stoked that I actually found it, and then that it made it into the show.
The timing of this find couldn't be better,
Although he wasn't supposed to do that.
because outside the snow is coming down heavy and this high up the mountainside.
Best thing I can be doing right now.
Oh, look at that knife. Yeah, I think that's the tomogamy that I designed with Hella out of Norway. And still for sale, and still an amazingly beautiful knife.
I was drinking the broth.
Bombarding my stomach with too much food, especially meat, after 6 days with little to no food, could make me quite sick. Starting with a simple broth is the best way to reawaken my digestive system to taking in food.
Now that's true, but honestly, it's also like intermittent fasting. A lot of times, as you guys have asked, at the end of a Survivorman episode, it's pizza and Guinness for me, so, and I'm always fine.
Wow. Oh boy, that's good.
It's making me hungry.
Oh my gosh. Well, it was definitely worth coming up this trail.
To answer your question, in the beginning, I used to lose about 12 pounds for Survivorman. I'd be about 12 pounds lighter. Then 10 pounds, then 8 pounds, and 6 pounds, and 4 pounds. And it was like my body just figured out what I was doing, because after a while, sometimes I'd come out, I'd maybe be 2 pounds lighter, which is nothing. You lose 2 pounds a night when you sleep. So, yeah, I don't know what happened. My body just got accustomed to it. But in the beginning, I'd drop 12 pounds in a week. It's not all that much.
If you ever want to experience really great tasting food, spend a week without it.
Okay, time for an update. It's been, I think, 6 days now that I've been out here. The first 4.5 days were stranded with a vehicle in the snow, and then a pretty bad night in the woods. It's been scant rations since I started, so this deer is fantastic for me right now. And that makes me feel like playing a happy song.
So when I would do the harmonica in Survivorman, part of me as an artist was simply saying, you know, I'm not a one-trick pony here. I don't just build shelters, you know. And so kind of did it on purpose, you know, for that reason. And I had a lot of fun with it. And so that leads me to tell you that this year is, and for the next many years, is a very big year for me musically. I'm coming out with my 8th and my 9th albums. All my stuff's there on Spotify, Apple Music, all the rest of them. I've pulled all of my music videos off of YouTube and I'm relaunching my music in July of 2023, and with some major announcements and a lot of new music, 2 brand new albums that I'm coming out with. One produced by Colin Linden, a legendary musician, and the other one by Mike Klink, our 3rd album together now. Producer also of Beth Hart, Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses. Yeah, musically speaking, I wrote all the theme songs. I kept my music in sometimes in the background, and so proud and so happy to keep doing it. And here's the cool thing is I get to write and sing about concepts that are basically, it's all about connecting to nature. Just as Survivorman was about connecting you to nature, facilitating you getting out in nature, my music is the same thing. I don't know. I just felt like talking about it. Go, let's keep watching.
"7 days in the mountains, in snow, and the last 12 hours have been the best. I found a hunter's cabin along with deer remains, and they've given me an incredible boost both psychologically and physically. But outside, it's still winter."
That was a far better night of survival than sleeping in the back of a stuck vehicle or spending a night in the bush. I can tell you that much. I'm gonna go out and look around the cabin and see what else is here. Obviously, I'm set for shelter and no problem for heat and warmth. I think I'll cook up a liver if I don't see any hunters return.
You know, let's remember that I had to climb all the way up to get that one stupid shot of the cabin, you know, with the smoke coming out of the chimney. I had to go up on the hill to get that shot, but I certainly loved it. We learned something on this episode. Max Atwood was with me, and Laura Bombier was there, and he was out getting beauty shots, as that's what the camera crew did. They went off and they got the birds and the bees and the time lapses of the clouds and so on, and we would use those as these transitional shots in between scenes, so I didn't have to get them anymore, which I did in the first season. But we kind of asked Max to really go for it. He used a slider and got a lot of beautiful stuff. And you know what we discovered? When we put that stuff in the show later, it was too beautiful. It took you out of the moment. It wasn't Survivorman anymore.
And it was that beauty that was the problem, because it had an effect on it, which was the camera moving and sliding. I mean, it's funny that it didn't seem to apply to the drone or a helicopter shoot, any of those shots, but it was like the slider or anything that just became too affected. The slider was the big one, and any rig where the camera had movement that wasn't done by like a physical, like by you actually. If you moved it, it was all right, but if anyone else moved the camera, just because it was a B-roll, it just didn't work. Like sometimes we would have B-roll footage that was handheld, and it didn't work because you didn't do it.
I was like, we should shoot the B-roll and make it look like Planet Earth. I think I had just watched something like Blue Planet or something like that, and I remember thinking like, yeah, like we should, you know, and I mean, at heart, I love all the tech of camera stuff. I love all the toys, I love all the tools, so I'm always gonna wanna try all the newest toys, right? So I think, but in my mind, I was like, yeah, like we should shoot the B-roll for this stuff, like a high-end nature documentary. And I mean, but looking at it, because I jumped back onto the edit, like Barry is 100% right. Like when you go from your footage and you cut to something like that, like a slider shot at like, you know, at the perfect time, and it looks like it took hours to set up, because it did. It just doesn't fit. It just takes you out of, like, it just takes you out of that. It just looks like, I think it's like it just ends up looking like stock footage. And, you know, it doesn't drive the story forward. It's also like, I feel like with camera movement now, it's like, now what I think about camera movement is it really has to be motivated. Like to move the camera like that in a very cinematic way, I think it really needs to be motivated by something. And I think like in those scenarios, it wasn't really motivated for any other reason to just look pretty. But pretty didn't sell the show, you know. It was supposed to be raw. It was supposed to look rugged and raw, you know. And I mean, you know, part of me was disappointed. It was fun to use all that stuff, but at the end of the day, like, you know, you have to, you know, do what the story is telling you to do, you know, and using sliders and jib arms and gimbals, you know, wasn't the right tools.
There's a tremendous amount of nutrition in an animal carcass, and it's not going to be lost on me. Not this day.
There's some meat and fat up inside the head here. That's all there is. They've taken all the good meat back with them. But this is a lot of food for me. No question about it. Won't be the first time I got blood on my cameras. The whole liver's here for me to enjoy. And the heart is here. And then just a whole lot of fat that I can make some more broth with. I know it doesn't look all that good, but to me, it looks like a feast right now.
Even the little cabin is dark and closed in, so I'd rather build a fire outside and cook up a solid meal.
There's matches inside, so that's not a problem. But still, just to conserve, there's some of this old duct tape. I'm gonna use that to light the fire.
4 days of claustrophobia in the small car have got me happy to stay out.
Quickly stop it there. Did you see what I just did there? Maybe I should go back. I'll just go back a little tiny bit. I want to show you that.
To stay out.
Okay. Now I'm going to pause. Right there. That technique right there is a great technique for splitting wood. Look how safe it is. You're holding your knife, and let's say you don't have an axe, right? Although I had one. But if you want to get even smaller pieces of wood, you hold your knife in one hand, and you're hitting on the blade of the knife with the other, with a little club or whatever, and splitting down the wood. That is a great, if you're going camping, that is a great way to split wood, incredibly safe. It's a great way to teach younger kids how to split wood without swinging an axe kind of thing. It works really well, especially if you're making kindling. That's the main thing it's used for, really, is to make kindling, smaller wood. So that technique, if you've never seen it before, I highly recommend it.
4 days of claustrophobia in the small car have got me happy to stay outside for my first real meal.
One thing about duct tape, it's a good fire starter.
You can see also that I had shavings in there as well, curled off, sort of whittle remnants, as we call them.
I know it seems like I maybe should just eat a ton of this deer, eat the heart, eat the liver, eat the fat, just sort of go for it and kind of gorge. It's been 7 days, and my stomach is probably the size of a walnut by now, so I don't have a lot of room. And if I eat too much, I'll end up with diarrhea. I don't want to have diarrhea out here. I don't have any problems out here. And in survival, you've got to lessen all of your problems. Get rid of them one by one by one. I had a lot of broth last night. Now I'm going to finally eat some meat. I'm going to give it a shot here. Even just to have a piece. Oh, yes, yes, yes. This is great. Oh. I don't care if you don't like liver or not. This is delicious. It's one of those moments where I can feel the energy starting to course through my veins almost instantly. I think that's why I'm all of a sudden talking faster. Oh.
That's a very true thing. You go without food for a long time. I remember it happened in the Alaska episode when I ate the fish that I found on the rock, or the snake in the Georgia episode. All of a sudden you just feel this energy just coursing through your veins. It's amazing.
Wow, this is good.
Better than any coffee.
At this very moment, this is the best liver I've had in my life. Norwegian deer liver. Most of the time, any dead animal in the bush is going to be snatched up almost immediately by crows and ravens and birds and foxes. That food's gone within a day, within hours sometimes. So it's really lucky to come across a dead animal. That said, a lot of times I have in my wanderings come across hunter's remains before. Come across a bear carcass before, and 2 moose carcass and a deer carcass. So, and I'm not.
Yeah, see, that again, Mitt just made my point for myself. Exactly. I've come across a lot of carcasses, but it was really, I mean, since he went up there and left that on purpose, it was lucky that it was still there, that it wasn't just gone and taken away by foxes, wolves, what have you. You know, certainly the birds, but it was still there, and I can smell it while I'm watching this.
In a survival situation, when I come upon a great advantage, it gives me a chance to take stock and build up my energy for continued, proactive survival. Staying put here could end up being just as big a mistake as staying anywhere else.
I'm not so sure. I think I'd prefer to have a flashlight with batteries. I know this thing lasts forever, but you have to keep winding it up every time you want to use it. This is going to be my last night in the cabin. I'm going to head down to the fjord. I can't stay here forever, because otherwise I'm going to sit here. I'm just going to run out of deer, and then I'm still stuck up here. Well, the radio doesn't work, but the bed sure does. I got this one coming to me.
Tonight is a night for intense and crazy dreams. They'll hit me strong when I have no food in my stomach, and they get even more intense and profound once I fill my belly for the first time, as I have with all the deer meat and fat. Left to survive long enough, and the dreams become hallucinations. All too often I've had vivid dreams of my family and warmth, only to wake up and find myself still sleeping in the mud or on the cold and frozen ground.
That's a direct reference to the crazy night I had in Papua New Guinea. Very true. You want to do some lucid dreaming? Try intermittent fasting. Both during the fasting and then when you eat again. It gets otherworldly.
It's my 8th day of survival now, and as easy as it may seem to consider heading down the hill, I could end up at the top of an impassable cliff and find myself stuck in the wet snow on the side of the mountain for the night. I'll have to pass through a wide range of temperatures and will likely end up in the freezing rain. Knowing this makes it hard to leave such comfort.
That's the way I found it.
Just to be clear, that whole scene was 2 cameras set up outside, 2 different angles, tapes with room on them, batteries, hopefully have the right charge, everything's ready to go. All that had to happen probably took me an hour to set all that up, just to show you and do the storytelling of me leaving the cabin.
My hike down should really only be one long hike, possible to do in one day. There are even established trails in this area if I can find them and not lose them. But sometimes a single mile in the thick bush can seem like it will never end.
Such a paradox, you know, the winter bush is always so beautiful, especially here in Norway. Absolutely stunning scenery. Yet, if you're lost out here without food, shelter, fire, protection from the elements, they can be deadly. What I'm into, I think, what am I at, 8 days now? The liver and the fat from the deer made a huge difference. I cut up a bunch of the meat. I'm carrying it with me. This is not like fasting. You know, people at home fast for even 10 days, drinking lemon juice and cayenne pepper and maple syrup. That's great. But when you're out in the bush like this, you don't want to be fasting.
I know from my winter camping days and snowshoeing and dog sledding, you'll burn upwards of 6,000 calories a day with that easily. So packing the calories on in a winter situation is really what's important. So being out there without eating, it just complicates your whole survival situation.
That's where I have to head down. It's still snowing. It's been snowing off and on. I'm wondering if, when I get down the fjord, if it's going to be snowing or raining.
So in this situation, what I was told was this: oh, you'll find the trail. That's what I was told. You'll find the trail. I never found the trail. I was hoping to find a trail. I thought, okay, there you go. And now I'm telling the story of, in a survival situation, you come upon a trail sometimes and you can find it, you can use it. Never found the trail. But that's the folly of just, people who know an area very well, they know where the trail is. Very difficult to explain to somebody else where a trail is in the wilderness. It's very, very hard. And you know what? Since we're about to do the main section, the main part, I need to top up my drink, don't you? Right. Let's pause for a second, shall we, Luke? All right, let's do this trek down the hill, shall we?
What I'm doing is following a creek. It leads down to the fjord, there's no question. So it's just a long way down.
The camera doesn't do justice to just how steep and slippery this trek down really is.
I just don't want to end up at a cliff somewhere. Coming back up would be tough. Trying to see my way down, but snow's getting in my eyes. Going down's a lot easier on the cardio, but a lot harder on the legs. That's for sure.
I wasn't expecting this. Everything is conspiring to put me in a dangerous position. I knew this area had a trail I could use to get down the hill, but I keep losing it. And now I'm getting wet in all ways. My sweat, the rain, the snow. Falling and slipping down the hill is ripping my clothing apart.
Just keeps getting steeper. And these are slippery boots.
I'm past the point of no return now, and I can't go back up and make it to the cabin before dark. Exhaustion is overtaking my legs, and I'm soaked to the skin.
It's starting to feel like a bad idea.
It's only been a few hours, but the landscape I've put myself in is steeper than what I'd hoped. And most of the time I'm climbing down a slippery and rocky hill with all of the weight of the cameras on my back. I'm making my own recipe for disaster.
None of this was expected. Not at all. I think they probably said to me, oh, it's an easy hike downhill. That's probably what they said to me, because they know where the trail is and there was some way to follow it, but I lost it, so there was no chance. I think I've often said, I'd rather go uphill than downhill. Uphill is slow, a lot of muscle work, but it often feels safer. Downhill is slippery and your legs become rubber, and that's what's going on here right now. I can already see it in my face and hear it in my breathing that I'm stressed to the max.
Sorry about the camera lens there. I can't believe I'm actually crawling downhill. But this snow is making all these rocks really slick. And it's a long way down.
One snapped ankle, one pulled tendon on an ankle, and you could die on the side of a mountain. So the intensity of it all and just the need to go down slowly and cautiously was this has never been stronger than this. And, it's now however many days, 8-9 days here. So my brain was not functioning the way it normally would in a survival situation for me. I've done these so many times. Literally hundreds of them over the years, And that part started to scare me. I didn't have my mental faculties the way I normally would. I'm a good leader in a tragedy situation or in a big disaster. I'm a very good leader in those situations, and my brain works very well for stuff like that. And it wasn't working this day because of everything that had come before. Of the fact that I've eaten some deer, that's fine. That almost gave me a false sense of confidence.
Going downhill that's this steep takes a lot out of you. And I'm sweating. And that's bad news.
But I couldn't stop. At that point in my brain, I know what I'm saying to myself. I'm saying, screw it. Just keep going. Maybe you'll have to strip down naked and then put on like your winter coat instead, sort of thing. But even that is soaking wet now. So my brain is going to that place where I know the lemons are stacking up. 1 lemon, 2 lemon, 3 lemons. And in this situation, I'm already at 3 lemons. I'm exhausted. It's been over a week. I have no food in my system. I've got an incredibly dangerous terrain to go down, and it's horrible weather. There's your 3 lemons right there. I talked about it in the Romanian episode. You know, when you get to 1 lemon, you get cautious. When you get to 2 lemons, it's a good time to really consider what you're doing and whether you should turn back. When you get to 3 lemons, stop. Just stop. I couldn't stop. There was nobody going to come and get me. Nobody could find me. I could not stop here. So I knew that for one of the rare times in my life, I was in a survival wilderness situation with 3 full lemons hitting me hard, and I could not stop. I had to keep going. It's the ultimate of dangerous situations.
Damn. It's probably already starting to get dark on me. I gotta get to the bottom before it does. As long as I don't come up against a cliff, I'll be okay. Kind of like what's happening to me right now. I can't go back.
That's a little shot of desperation. I know myself when I speak. When I go, come on. When I do that, you know, it's like, nah, come on. When I talk like that, I'm up against something I can't solve. And yeah, it's pretty scary.
Heading down the mountain has turned out way worse than I expected. I'd known from my understanding of this area that getting down to the ocean is possible, but many of the areas are far too steep to manage, and getting trapped at the top of a cliff is a real danger. Going back up this exhausted and in the slippery wet snow is not an option now. Getting trapped in between a cliff and nowhere to go is a real possibility.
So, you know, when we bring into things that you see, you know, and I can watch the other survival shows that came along, and I watch the drama they've injected into it, whether it's Alaskan Survival or, you know, so many different shows. Yeah, it drives me crazy because I can see how they manufactured the drama and the danger to make it look good for camera, especially, you know, a Naked and Afraid or a Man vs. Wild or a Duel. There's no danger at all. They're setting it all up. And for me to have gone through this, you know, even watching it now, I haven't seen this in 15 years. Even watching it now, I got to be honest, it kind of gives me chills. I know how far things went this day and how close I came. And so, yeah, it drives me crazy to see what other people pretend to be going through when I had to go through this. Yeah, this is kind of, I didn't expect to feel that way. Maybe it's because the fan's on overhead. But I got some chills here. It's crazy.
This is an easy way to break an ankle. Just keep going down, Les. Keep going down.
Yeah, there you go. I'm talking to myself now. When I start talking to myself, I'm in trouble. It's only happened 2 or 3 times, but it's like, you know, it's just like, come on, Les, come on. And I'll get, come on, Les, come on. I'll be like that, right? Mad at myself. Very mad at myself and talking to myself. That means that I'm getting desperate, basically. I'm not solving the issues or solving my own problems. I'm just desperately trying to get out of them.
It'll be all right. Oh, God. Oh, God.
Now that I'm soaked through to the skin, completely without radio contact to the outside world, survival couldn't get any more real.
And by the way, that's my actual heartbeat you're hearing. You could hear my heartbeat through the GoPro that was on my chest, and we just brought that in and sort of amplified it so you could hear it properly. And me sitting there going, oh God, that's not acting. There's probably stuff I said, well, I know there's stuff that I said on camera that I just told Barry Farrell, the editor, not to include in the show, because I truly thought, like, this can't get worse, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get out of this.
This is not a sound effect. My body cam is picking up the sound of my heart racing. More than being chased by a jaguar, more than having heat stroke, this simple trek down a mountainside has turned into one of the most dangerous situations I've ever been in.
And I've said before, you know, when I've told this story when I was just doing that talk in Prince George, that I was sliding down on my bum. And it sounds like fun for a while, you know, it's like tobogganing, right? Well, sliding down on your bum, even on snow, is fine for 30 feet. It was a 2-mile stretch down this mountain, through this bush. 2 miles on my butt and my legs and my knees, and ripping the pants to shred. It was excruciatingly painful.
That scene was pretty shocking because it looked like you're watching news footage of somebody that fell down a mountain and slid halfway down, and perhaps that they're going to come to a cliff and drop 100 feet, and it'll make it'll make one of those moments caught on camera. Because it was a real thing, and it was quite it's a bit shocking because you know what you're doing. So to see you in a situation that's that precarious and that like intense was like, wow, this just isn't fun. And you're I mean, and of course, film never conveys the steepness, but you're able to get a few shots where you could look behind, where you could actually see, well, it's like near vertical. Because, when you're filming, you don't see it as much as two-dimensional. So you need those right shots, and they're really hard to get. But for us, it was like, the hard part was not making it almost too real. I guess that's the thing, is because, you're still, there is a show to do, and there's an element you have to keep everything moving forward. And you can't focus too much on something negative or make something look overly dangerous when it's not. But the right amount of it. We actually had to tone it down a little bit so that it didn't get too far, because then people would have went, well, that's just that couldn't have happened, but it did. That's as real as it gets. It was pretty hardcore.
Catch my breath.
I'm soaked through to my skin in the wet snow and rain. The sun is dropping fast, and that puts me at great risk from succumbing to hypothermia if I have to spend the night here. I can't go back up. The uphill climb on the slippery rocks is now too much for my exhausted legs. I'm still carrying 65 pounds of camera gear, and I may be trapped going down. Every time I look ahead, I see cliffs.
When I get stressed, I swear a lot. It's a Canadian thing. And this is kind of creeping me out. I haven't seen it. I think I didn't want to see this. And that's why I haven't watched this in a long, long time. Like I say, it's giving me chills. It was weird. It's weird to see this again. You can hear the intensity of my voice. Yeah, just keep watching.
I just want to get to the shore before dark. That's all I'm asking.
Now, notice what I said. That's all I'm asking. Oh, yeah. I got religion that day.
Six hours of being lost and constant downhill climbing on slippery rocks has left me exhausted and without strength, and the sun is dropping fast.
I'm soaked. That's not good. I think I made it to the shore, though. I can see ripples on the water. Hope that's not just an illusion for me. I got what I wished for. I'm at the bottom. There's the ocean.
All right, so, yeah, probably the most intense 6 hours of my entire wilderness experience was going down that mountainside in Norway. And because I, like the Kalahari heat stroke, it was the closest that I have ever come to dying, to succumbing to the elements in my life. And to me, that was far more scary than being chased by a jaguar or having a tiger outside my shelter in India. Being treed by a moose comes as a close second, I will say that. And the reason why it happened is real simple. I got cocky. If you're in a group of people and there's a problem and a leader, someone says, "Hey, I've got this." Well, that's one way of saying I've got this. There's confidence there. We're gonna get through this. But if you say, "I got this. What could go wrong? I'm Survivorman," now you're in trouble. And that was the attitude I had going into this Norway episode. Was, yeah, I'll be fine. I mean, the guy told me that his kids go down that hill on that trail. Problem is I never found the trail, or maybe I did and lost it. And so I was bushwhacking basically, and that bushwhacking was dangerous down that hillside, down that mountainside. But it was my own overconfidence that put me in that situation. And it's that overconfidence, that cockiness that will always get you in trouble. It always gets me in trouble. It's happened a few times in my life, but I would say that's probably the worst. And like I say, I have not watched those scenes in 15 years at least. And there were things that we didn't include. I asked Barry not to keep them in there. No, I didn't cry, but I might have prayed. I think there's a please God in there somewhere, something like that. And I just said, nah, let's not put that in. That was the toughest one right there. All because I got cocky. And the weather did not care. It didn't care that I was making a film. It didn't care that I was Survivorman. It didn't care that I had 30 years of wilderness experience. The weather didn't care. And it showed me who's the real boss. The weather will always be the boss. Doesn't matter how tough you are, how good you are at making fires. The weather is far more powerful, and it did me in that day. So how did I make it down? Perseverance. That's about it. I can't claim anything too noble, as I wasn't noble on that mountainside. I guess I just knew that giving in halfway through would have meant death for me. I'm not being overly dramatic here. Soaked to the skin, completely exhausted, legs like rubber, not much food in my system after 8 days of survival, in wet snow and freezing rain on the side of a mountain, and the night coming in. There's a good chance I could have succumbed to hypothermia that night and died. And I knew that. And I really just put one wobbly leg in front of the other, and while I slid on my bum over rocks and made it to the end. I guess there's a moral in that story, isn't there?
It's raining. And no shelter. I'm soaked. I was better off in the cabin.
My legs are shaking and weak, but I am at least at the ocean's edge. The sun is dropping fast. There's often no worse survival situation than to be soaking wet, with night falling and no shelter. To experience my core body temperature dropping enough to make me hypothermic is a very real possibility in a situation like this.
This is gonna suck.
It's still better than being stuck halfway up the mountain, drenched to the bone in the freezing rain.
Tights there. I was pretty stressed out. And all I saw in front of me were cliffs. This is not a time for rock climbing.
There was one moment where I was literally looking just at cliff and icy cliffs. And my right, my left, I couldn't see could I even get around this cliff, or am I just stuck in a funnel? That was scary as shit. Yeah. And I think I edged my way. I went to the right because that was really the direction I needed to go, and I just edged my way. And I guess I didn't film it simply because I'm sure there's a lot of those 6 hours I didn't film, because it was just a matter of just keep moving, you know. And that's the thing. If in the world of Survivorman, I was always of a split brain. One side was being a filmmaker, one side was being a survival guy. I was surviving, you know. And when it really got hard, forget the filmmaking. I needed to survive. And so the fact that I could just leave a GoPro running on my chest and got all those shots, and out over 6 hours, I mean, what did we just watch there? Only about 3 minutes, right? And so out of 6 hours, that's condensed down to a few moments where I'm just like breathing and, okay, press record, say something, talk to the camera, stop it, keep moving. Yeah, it was horrible.
Not in a survival situation. If you've ever done any whitewater canoeing or diving or anything like that, when you have to put your wetsuit on when it's cold and wet, that's what this feels like right now. You'll know what I'm talking about. My cameras are all dying from the rain. Just got these last 2 cameras going for me here. Remember this little guy? Well, it worked up on the mountain. Let's see how it works down here. Okay, we got fire. And I got some of that deer fat in there. All that is deer fat, and right now, it tastes like the best filet mignon I could ever imagine. And it's really important that I eat this fat now, because the fat will keep me, whoa. Okay then. The fat will keep me warm inside through the night. Maybe it won't be so bad of a night after all. All right. We got about 10 hours of darkness to go through right now.
I always know it's a rough night of survival when getting warm means getting up and exercising just to get my blood moving and give myself a flush of heat from my muscles. This action allows me to sleep for just another 20 minutes.
This is one of those situations where a nice big tarp would be helpful. It's just off and on raining. Right now it feels like it's about 4 in the morning. I'll bet you it's only about 11:30 p.m. The reality of survival is that it always comes down to 3 o'clock in the morning. If you can get past that, then you can make it.
That's so true. First of all, it's true that you think it's 4 a.m., it's not even midnight yet. That's why a watch is often not your best friend. I hate wearing a watch in survival situations, because I'll look at, oh my God, it's only 11:30. I thought it was almost morning. It's horrible because you're cold, you're chilled, you're shivering. It's miserable. And so if you can make it past that 3 a.m. mark, now you're on the other side. It's the upswing into morning sort of thing. But kind of everything before 3 a.m. in a cold, chilly survival situation is it's just misery.
But that's the hardest time. 3 in the morning. When you wish you were sleeping and you wish you were somewhere else. It's been a long night. Sleep was reduced to 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes at a time. Waking up with the chills. It's a brutal night like that when you're soaking wet and you're stuck out in a shelter. You've heard of the proverbial being stuck between a rock and a hard place? Well, this is what it looks like. One last thing I can do before I go is I've got this leftover fat and it's congealed now, and I can actually wipe it on my boots. That won't even help a little. That actually help a lot. I'm just gonna rub this stuff. There's enough to rub over all of the boots and get them protected a bit more from the rain, protected a bit more from the wet.
That's just kind of an old, dog sledder, trapper kind of trick is they used to use all the time. The best is actually moose fat. Moose fat on your boots, and it just protects it from the water. It's just grease, right? And so that was me throwing in a little bit of bushcraft knowledge there.
A single coating of animal fat grease can go a long way towards keeping my feet dry.
I'm finding trails, and then the trails stop. I'm gonna find another trail. I'm not far, I'm about 100 yards up from the ocean's edge. I see a couple of little caves up in there I could have crawled into last night. I'll remember them for tonight. This is a lot easier going. Oh. There's a rose hip too. Oh, there's a couple more. I didn't even see these. Look at this.
All rose hips are edible, and they make amazing tea, and you can make amazing jam with them as well. Jelly, actually.
Oh yeah. That's a major score. The rose hips have pound for pound more vitamin C than oranges. And these ones are delicious. And they get to being soft. Wow, that's good. Ow, ow, ow. I'll eat the soft ones and make tea out of the hard ones.
If you want to check out my Wild Harvest series, I do a whole episode featuring rose hips. They probably show up a couple of times in episodes, actually.
Oh, that's good. A lot of fresh water around here. It's a good thing, too. Otherwise, I'd be reduced to probably having to drink my own pee. Yeah, right. You gotta see this to believe it. Check it out. Hello? Hello?
So what was this situation? Same thing as before. I'd never been down here. I hadn't seen, didn't know what to expect, didn't know what I would find, other than I was told that yes, if you make it to the fjord in certain spots, you might run into people, you might run into some cottages that are down there. So that way, this did imitate a survival situation where you do come upon dwellings.
Hello? It's a big old house, barn. I don't see any signs, I don't see any footprints. Odds are it's locked up. Most people...
Right, and they actually told me, look around for keys. You'll probably find them somewhere.
People leave a key hidden somewhere. Start here. This is the usual obvious place.
My host guy had buildings down here. I don't know which were his and which weren't, but he said you might find one of ours, you might find neighbors, but go down, look around, and check for keys in different places where they put them. And if nobody's there, break in. Now, I actually always enjoy showing this in a survival situation because breaking into a dwelling is a real part of actual survival in a wilderness area because you come across cabins. Remember in Labrador, they have actual survival shelters. That's the whole purpose of them, is for people who are lost or what have you. But other times it's places that are owned by other people, but it's certainly, it's paradise if you have been lost and alone out in the woods. Hey everyone, me again. This time I'm going to interrupt me interrupting my show. And where am I? Beautiful Istanbul. So I'm actually sitting on my little patio deck here outside my room aboard a big ship. No, I don't normally do cruises, but this is for my father-in-law's 75th birthday, so we are doing a cruise from Istanbul down to Ephesus and Troy, and then to Crete and over to Athens, Greece. I've already been here a week recording musicians in Istanbul, which has been amazing. That'll come out on a new musical project. But anyway, I'm interrupting the whole flow of this director's commentary, but that's for a reason. You see, I discovered something while watching the director's commentary, and that is there was a scene missing. And it was kind of, I was flabbergasted by it because I could not remember. As I said, it's been a long, long time since I watched these shows. And so where did that scene go? And why well, maybe I'm misremembering this. Maybe I didn't spend a night in the house. No, I did spend a night in the house. And I realized after what happened. So normally speaking, here's how a show is delivered. If you deliver to the Americans, it's this long. If you deliver to the Canadians, it's this long. If you deliver to UK and Europe, it's this long. So we would edit a show for the United States, for Discovery Channel US, Science Channel US, we would edit it this long. Then we'd add another scene. Oh, put this scene in for the Canadians. We'll put that in for the Canadian version. And then, another 3 minutes for UK. We'd add another scene in there. When editing this show, we must have had a conversation, Barry Farrell and I. We must have said, we're too long. There was so much content with this Norway episode that we must have thought, well, we're just too long. We're going to need to, what do we remove here? It's like, well, we probably said something like, well, the night in the house looks weird for a Survivorman episode. We don't really need to show that, and that's probably why we took it out. Now, here, the other less is watching the DVD. Normally on the DVDs, we include the UK version, so you get everything. And I guess we slipped up. I guess on this DVD, it's the American version that we happen to have, pressed at the facility and included, and so the wrong file got sent. I'm finding this out 20 years later. But whatever. By the way, just to interrupting my show, is to say that, you're going to hear can't even talk. You're going to hear boat horns and tour guide talking, because there's tours that are going by. There's a lot going on in this Galata port, Istanbul. I can see the Blue Mosque from here, Hagia Sophia, Topkapi, the cisterns just over there, the Basilica Cistern. Amazing place visiting Istanbul. But I digress. Those are the sounds you're going to hear in the background when this Les takes over and starts talking. Okay, back to the moment at hand here. So while doing this director's commentary, then I realized that, but we uploaded it anyway. Now that upload, by the way, is pulled down, and you're watching this with all of the scenes from the UK. Why is this particular? Did you need to waste all this time coming back here to see just an extra scene that Les had 3 more minutes of the show? Kind of, yeah, because it was an important scene. This is my ghost story, man. This was a freaky situation that I did want to tell about, and I never got the chance really to tell about it. So let's kick this in and see what we get here. I don't know how this is going to all turn out, but I'm going to watch the scene that was missing, and we've got the other Les over. Let's see, you're looking at me, and you're seeing me up in the left-hand corner. The other Les is going to be, I think, over in that corner, or maybe this one. I don't know. The other Les is going to be beside me, and we're both going to interrupt from here on the way out. Okay. There you go. Let's get at it.
Cut firewood. You know what that means? It means there's got to be a wood stove in here somewhere. Let's check out upstairs. Everything's empty. Little mini wood stoves. Cots. Empty rooms though. All cleaned and cleared out, but nothing in it. That's an old stove. Every room here has its own little wood stove and Norwegian flag. Huh. Yeah. Wow. Good spirits here. Good spirits. I'm going to go.
All right, I'm going to stop that right there. And by this time now, the other Les has probably disappeared because he's not watching these scenes that I'm seeing for you right now. So, I'm remembering when I said right there, I said good spirits, good spirits. I remember now already feeling something kind of creepy, and I think I was just saying that to reassure myself, to reassure the situation. I was just trying to put that out there, but I do remember going upstairs, and as soon as I saw upstairs and I saw the different rooms that I was looking at, I remember thinking in my head now, yeah, I'm not staying up here. There's no way I'm sleeping up here, which would have been warmer and more comfortable than downstairs, but I remember thinking, nah, not gonna do it. I was already starting to feel strange the minute I was in the house. More to come.
Go downstairs, I'm gonna light up that wood stove, strip down, and get my clothes all dry again. So I'm still drenched to the skin. I can't believe I'm inside a cottage. Now this is what I'm talking about when it comes to survival. This is a huge boon. I can't tell you, there are lots of stories of people who have survived simply because they came upon a cabin or a cottage or just a remote home or farmstead. And that's my situation here. I'm gonna take advantage of it. It's been 9 days with really little more than a few food rations that died off quickly, and some deer fat, and that deer liver. And that's what I think I'm going to do as well, is I've still got some leftover deer liver, so I'm going to cook it up. What a score.
This house is closed for the season, so there's no
Stay tuned, I got a good story about this house.
food left behind. It still only represents one part of the survival equation, shelter. I'll still need to find more food for long-term survival.
Remember that. Shelter's only one part, even if it's a house, shelter's only one part of the survival equation. Water, food, warmth, all matter.
Look at this, I want you to see something. Up and behind me, there's some cliffs. Had I gone the wrong way, those cliffs are what I would have been faced with. There would have been no way down without killing myself. I would have had to climb back up all the distance I'd slid down. It's the same thing off to the other side. I only had a narrow path. It's amazing that I made it as far as I did.
I'm sure the other Les has got something to say here, but we will be coming back to the house scenes in just a minute here. The extra scenes. All right, Les, I'm sure you got something to say. Go for it.
And the way I did, because it's easy to get yourself up and out onto a spot and then be stuck there. And the way I was doing yesterday, there's no way I would have been able to climb back up. I just wish I'd found this place last night.
It's kind of freaking me out, actually. I haven't seen this in so long. I'm like, yeah, I think I didn't want to remember that night, that day. I don't think I ever wanted to remember that day. Just seeing it now, I'm like, oh, you just don't know what I'm feeling right now, just seeing it. Like, it's fine memories when I'm telling the story, you know, a bunch of people or in a keynote or whatever, but actually seeing it and remembering it now. Oh, score. There we go. Look at that. Now those are blue mussels. So now they can be seriously bad for my stomach if I eat them wrong, but I won't eat them wrong. Let's see if I can get some more. There's got to be hundreds of mussels here. If I found this many in this tiny little spot, there should be hundreds of mussels here, and I can eat this seaweed too. Well, it's not seaweed. And honestly, I don't know what the proper name for it is. I just know I can eat it. You know, case in point of where's the best place to survive? It's always on the ocean's edge. The ocean is incredibly bountiful. The ocean shoreline, the tidal zones, amazing bounty. That's where it's easier to survive. Even if it's cold ocean like Norway or the west coast of Canada, it can still be very bountiful. Of course, tropical is unbelievable. But that is the easier way. Now it's just about gathering.
That's just an old potato field, but there may be potatoes in it, and you gotta explore every opportunity. They're really soft, little potatoes. Not much, but survival food. I'll take what
I found out later that where I am right now is was one of the very first, I found this out after the fact, it was one of the very first original miniature orchards planted by the Vikings. So this particular little orchard here goes way, way back.
You can get. There we go. Hey, that's a good hard potato. Bonus.
Okay, so the trick to these little guys is to get rid of the insides. That's a little bit gnarly on the stomach, but even the meat itself's got to be boiled. So I don't know. Okay, didn't have to hit so hard. That works. So I just want to find the meat, get rid of all the guts. That's not much. It's a fingerful, but there's lots of them. There we go, this one's a little bigger. And these are called blue mussels. There we go. So I'm kind of making a mess of these guys, but that's the deal.
So I can see why Barry would have chosen this as a snap-in and would have excluded it in the original American version, because it's not really a fast-moving scene. It's taking some time. But we need that time for filling out the UK version, so the scene stays in.
Deal with mussels. Like pulling mussels from a shell. And once you pull out their stomachs and intestines, you're only left with a little morsel of meat. But still protein. Okay, so I can't believe I'm actually doing this in the kitchen. Mind you, it's a bit of a...
Stop it right there on a little camera technique note. If you're filming yourself, I've seen this over and over and over again with people. When people film themselves and they're holding their camera like this in the selfie mode sort of thing, something that I learned to do really, really quickly, and I'm doing it for you right now. But many people just don't. They're not grasping that. Even if they watch their edit later, they're just like, do you not see what you're doing there? And what ends up happening is you like Dale in King of the Hill, pretending to be Survivorman. You flip the lens around so you can see yourself. The reason for that is so that you make sure that you're positioned, within the frame properly. After a while, you can get rid of that flip screen and just concentrate on this. But while the flip screen is out, what you must not do is this, because if you're looking at yourself talking, you're saying, oh, here I am doing this thing and da-da-da-da-da, it just doesn't look right, does it? And so you've got to train yourself to look right back down the center of this black round nothingness. And that's what I kind of learned very, very quickly, right in the very beginning. So we're going back 1999, doing it for the first time, realizing I cannot do the show like this. It just looks odd. So if you film yourself, try to remember that. Don't look over at the lens, look straight at the camera. All right.
Stolen kitchen, but it'll work. And I've got the seaweed as well, or whatever you call this. I'm going to put that in and cook that up. So I should have a bit of a stew going on here. I got deer fat left over.
Yeah, so you're right there. If you'd looked at my eyes, I'm looking directly at the camera lens, not over at the window. With the other camera angle, you can see that the little viewer is flipped out, just so I know that I'm in the right position.
And and the rose hips even in the water that was my deer fat. So it should be a real nice sort of smooth, oily, rose hip kind of flavored broth. Once you get to this stage, once you get to 9 days, it's amazing I can string a sentence together. String a couple sentences together. See, I can't even do that. Yeah. That's the biggest thing about food. It's the last on the list of survival priorities, but what happens is without it, you start losing your energy.
Finding a cottage is the ultimate advantage in a survival situation.
Right there. See that slider shot right there? That's what we were talking about with the Max Atwood beauty shots in Norway. He set up this sliders, getting this B-roll shot, as we call it, cutaway, if you will. But when you see second camera unit, this is the kind of stuff they generally tend to get. And so he's getting these shots, but it's so beautiful. It worked, but I think we only included 2, in this whole show because, again, they end up being so beautiful, they take you away from the story that Les Stroud is trying to tell you, which is about survival, and it's gnarly and it's gritty. And then you cut to a, blue chip documentary style, beautiful planet Earth kind of shot. Takes you out of the moment.
Just as ripping apart a car is justified, so is breaking into a deserted house for shelter. It's illegal at any other time, but not when it comes to survival. I knew there would be houses along the coast, and it was a large part of my motivation for wanting to get down here as soon as I could. I didn't want another night sleeping amongst the rocks.
Okay, so I've made myself up this sort of soupy broth. Let me show you what I'm dealing with here. Seaweed, rose hips, mussels, fresh water, deer liver, a couple of potatoes from the garden. And yeah, I know it looks disgusting, but it's a lot of nutrition.
It would seem that in this survival ordeal, I've experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
Yesterday was probably one of the most nervous.
That's interesting. That last little shot there looks like it might be a drone shot, which would mean when the drone team, when I was all done and I was going home and everything, they went, I think I'd asked them, said, go, here's where I went, go get a bunch of shots for me to use transitionally, and that probably would have been one of those shots. But let's see what I have to say here.
Times I've ever had out in the bush. I was truly worried for my situation. If I'd come up to a cliff and not been able to get down it in any way, and it was all slippery, then I was just crawling at that point. I would have had to try to crawl back up, and it would have been, it was half an hour before dark. So to be here now, I'm giddy, to be honest with you, to be here now. What I'll do is I'll go down by the shore front and I'll put together a signal fire. And I still have, from the survival kit, from the car, the flares. So I'm going to send them off too and see if they work, or at least see how well they work. I'm finally going to sleep well tonight.
Yeah, when I say I was giddy, truly, I was giddy because I dodged a bullet that day.
It's been a long 10 days of survival in Norway. 5 days stuck in a car, 4 days trekking on the mountainside, and now here, enjoying the luxury of someone's summer cottage. Albeit without much food, but I'm ready to get out of here. Back to warmth and safety, and back to food.
There's one of those beautiful, 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 beautiful shots that Max Atwood took, where we kept it in the show, but he had so much more than just that shot. And again, so stunning that it kind of takes you out of the story of what Les Stroud is going through. And so we use them very sparingly. So this is where I'll interrupt this process here. So I spent the night there. And what happened was, at first I thought, sure, I'll go upstairs, I think there was a cot or something up there, and get a wood. There was no wood stove downstairs in the living room, but I could make it nice and warm and so on. A couple things there. Number one, I wasn't sure of the safety of those wood stoves and the piping and everything going through the house. I didn't want to burn the house down. But number two was just as it got dark, I remember very intense feelings. Now, someone had posted well, yeah, of course, you went through a rough exhaustion thing, so it's, in other words, it's all in my mind. Maybe you're not wrong. Maybe everything's just all in my mind. But I've been around the world and been in a lot of weird places, and I do have some other creepy stories to tell you, but for the most part, no, there aren't big creepy stories. For the most part, I just do what I do. This was something else, absolutely something else. And I could feel it in the whole fiber of my being, sort of thing, this element of kind of spookiness and creep factor. And of course, as it got darker, that only added to the ambiance. It felt like I was inside a horror film when I was inside that house. And I did start to hear, creaks and things in the house with no wind going outside and without the temperature dropping and stuff. I was like, okay, I haven't heard anything, for what is that, the odd little thunk kind of thing. And so I just took it upon myself. I thought, okay, I'm feeling the chills on the back of my neck just remembering it right now. And I thought, all right, let's do this right here. And I sort of sat down and I said, look, I just need one night here. That's all I need. And I'd like to get some sleep, and I did this sort of thing where I was like, I honor that this is your place, that I have no place here, and so I'm asking you, if I may just stay here tonight in peace, in quiet, get some sleep, and then I will leave tomorrow, I promise. It was, it's not something I would normally ever do. When I did the Survivorman Bigfoot series, I was in some crazy, creepy places, and I was like, yeah, whatever, let's get the job done, But this one was different. Whether it's because it's so ancient, everywhere is Viking burial ground in a way, right? So it's the old orchards, all that stuff. Whether it's because it's so ancient or just this abandoned house, I have no idea. I've never seen ghosts, and I can't speak to that sort of matter. But I can tell you that the feeling of just feeling so... Well, I gotta say this. For a moment, for a while, a good while, like we're talking, 45 minutes, an hour and 15 kind of thing, until I kind of did my, hey, request, it felt dark, like creepy dark. And like, maybe I should just go sleep outside, kind of dark, this doesn't feel right. I just know that I needed to appease the spirits, if you will. I needed to say something, do something. It wasn't a prayer as much as it was almost like a plea. It's like, hey guys, listen, sorry to be, bugging you and messing up your place here, but you cool if I just chillax for a while? It was kind of like that. I kind of did it that way. And the minute I did that, nay, the second that I did that, it was like, whoosh. And all the darkness went away, and my hair went back down on my neck, everything. It was like just an acceptance. And it was like, okay, all right, this guy's cool. Leave him be. That's what it felt like. It's exactly what it felt like. Now, all in my head, yeah, probably. But one way or the other, I experienced it. I felt it. It was very real for me. And that is how that night went down. And then I ended up just sort of curling. There was I guess the couch I was sitting on there, I just curled on that. There was no blankets, no anything. It was cold. And just curled on that couch, which I think was like a vinyl couch, and tried to sleep through the night. But I did get sleep, and I was not spooked out or creeped out for the rest of the night at all. So there's my ghost story for you, in a way. And I guess maybe to this day I'll never know. There's a family that will use that house with children and everything, But I think maybe the fact that it was completely empty, other than I think I did find some salt. Other than some salt in the cupboard, no signs really of human activity. That didn't seem really old. So there you go. That's my ghost story. Let's keep watching.
People who come and looking for me are going to watch for me all along this shoreline. They don't know whether I'm going to be in a shelter in the bush, at a cliff edge, or here I am at this big homestead. What a bonus. So I'm going to get a signal fire set up down by the shore. I think survival manuals tend to make signal fires a little too complicated. They don't need to be all that complicated. You just need a smoky fire that's ready to light in an instant. That's the end of it. So that's what I'm going to build.
You can never assume that you're easily spotted. In my case, I'm wearing gray clothes and standing on a gray rock-studded shoreline.
All right, which is a good point. Gray clothing, gray rock-studded shoreline, shades of gray everywhere, and I'm fully in gray, showing you that the color of your clothing matters a lot if you want to be rescued. Okay, I'm going to bow out. I'm going to let the other Les take over and finish out this director's commentary with y'all. I just wanted to get in there. It really, in the end, it was just that extra scene where I'm processing the food. But I did want to put it in there so that I could address the fact that I stayed overnight. In the first version of this director's commentary, I got mixed up and I thought, well, maybe I didn't spend the night, but I had to have because I did the full 10 days. Then seeing the other scene, it was like, right, I did spend the night. I slept on the couch and I refused. I never went back up that set of stairs for the rest of the time that I was there. I would not go up. It was just too spooky. So I'm going to go back to my journey in Istanbul. Les, why don't you take over and finish this out for everybody.
That is my smoke maker, I hope. Back at home, I'd use moss from the bush. I'm hoping this seaweed might work just as well. If you remember, way back when I was stranded with the car, I siphoned out some gas into this jar of peanut butter, so some of my peanut butter gas. And, I should get the fire going.
I forgot all about this. Right. I always love it when the rescue crew, so to speak, can where they have to try to actually find me. There was a number of occasions where it's like, well, you guys are just gonna have to try to find me. This was one of them. It's like, I might be in a house down below on the fjord, I might be in a cave, I might be in a shelter, I might be standing on the shoreline, I don't know. Try and find me. And that way I know they're gonna get some great shots from the helicopter, so or the boat, whichever way they're trying to find me. And I know that, of course, the local fixer, he would know where the buildings were because he owned some of them, and so he'd probably beeline right for that. But just the same, you can be in a civilized place and not be seen. So it's still a good skill to know how to do this shelter fire.
All the safety team has to spot is a fire or some of the smoke.
There's a boat way over on the far shore, and it looks like they're going slow and stopping and scanning. So if that's my boat, I'm gonna try the signal now. There we go, windproof match. Come on. There we go. It's not these flames that are gonna work for me. It's all this punky stuff. Woo. On top, that's gonna make the smoke. From the car survival kit, flares. Oh, you're kidding me. Oh, that's gnarly. I pulled the wire right out of the flare, and nothing. That's not a lifesaver. Got one other, I'll try it.
Yeah, so before I do the second one, take note there. Flares can fail on you, and some of those little tiny ones, they're cheap-ass little flares. Again, survival equipment, the best quality you can afford.
Second flare, but also past its expiry date. Wow, you gotta check these things. I'm looking at this, it says 1993.
Whoa!
That's just dumb.
I didn't even know that. So yeah, expiry dates on flares, not good.
Nothing. Okay, these are great flares. I've used them before.
Okay.
I just haven't used them when they were expired, and it shows
Right.
you. When it comes to survival kit items, they gotta be up to date. All right, I'm gonna pour a little bit more gas on that fire. See if that helps. I know they're looking for fire, so.
It's the flames that finally do the trick and make me noticeable by the boat on the far shore.
That's working. I think the nose of their boat is headed this way. After 10 days, I'm going home.
All right, let's stop it right there in the credits. Whew! I tell you guys, that was a very strange and freaky whole thing. The coming down the mountain and almost dying, essentially. Not to be overly dramatic, but I was definitely in a dangerous situation. This whole episode, I would say Norway, is kind of one of my favorites. Now that I see it, I haven't seen it in so long, but it's kind of one of my favorites because it was multi-dimensional in what was going on. I was able to speak a lot of survival instruction stuff that I like to get out, you know. I could poke fun at some of the other shows that were happening, as you heard me do. And then I had the most dangerous situation I've had in my life. And then I had the weird experience in the house. And there was the finding out later that my host had, let me see who the host was. He's going to be in the credits here. He was awesome.
I've spent 10 years making survival films all around the world. And now, I've spent 10 days surviving in the Norwegian mountains. While here, I've experienced the worst day of survival I've ever had. I hit the complete peak of my own personal will to live and drive to survive. And then it was followed
Oh,
by
as
the best
Anders.
day
Oh, there we go.
survival.
Ah, that's it. Hakkasan Lodge, Homar Hakkas. That must have been, he was awesome. And these guys, they don't look fit, but man, their whole life is up and down hills. So they're super fit.
I've ever had. Finding not just a small cabin or a building, but an actual abandoned house.
You don't need to see the rest of it, because it's kind of nonsense stuff with some of these credits that had to be put there on the screen. You guys probably don't know about credits, but you have to put courtesy credits on all these TV shows. You'll see like executive producer names, and unless it's the people directly involved in the show, you see like executive producer for Discovery Channel and that. These people have nothing to do with the show. Sometimes they haven't even seen the damn episode, but they have to have their name on there. Anyway, I digress. Wow. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with me. That was a little wild. I don't know if it's the Jefferson Reserve talking or just me talking, but I wasn't expecting to feel a little weird watching myself go down that mountainside. So there you go, man. You're right. If you stuck with it this long, this is going to be a long episode for Luke to edit. Try to leave everything in, Luke. Well, thank you for sticking it through, and know that, in all the Survivorman episodes, nearly 60 episodes, 18 years, in that particular one, it didn't go as planned, and yes, I almost died. And I'm not being dramatic. And I look at it now, and I realize, like, wow, I could have died that day on the mountain, but I'm still here. And thanks to you guys, I'm reliving it. Okay. I got to go pack because I'm on my way to Turkey and Greece. And I'm going to do some recording with some musicians there for a new album that I'm working on. But we'll tell you about that later. All right, guys. Talk soon.